6.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jacqueline Fernandez.
And I'm Erin Sullivan. Let's get right into our top 6 headlines at 6.
Here in Omaha and around the world, people are ringing in the new year. A look at some of the more bizarre New Year's traditions around the country. That's a bit later in the broadcast.
Some popular vaping products are off the shelves in Nebraska today. A new law bans retailers from selling unregistered products in their stores. This leaves shops with fewer products to sell, and some owners say the change has already cost them.
New restrictions on purchases with SNAP benefits take effect today. In Nebraska, you can't buy soda or energy drinks with SNAP benefits. In Iowa, candy, vitamins, gum, soda, and some store-prepared foods are now SNAP ineligible.
Swiss authorities say at least 40 people are dead and 115 are injured, most seriously burned after a fire tore through a ski resort bar during a New Year's celebration. Police said in a news conference today that most of the people killed were in their 20s. Switzerland will hold 5 days of national mourning.
New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani took office today, the 34-year-old becoming the city's youngest mayor in over 100 years. Mamdani is an immigrant from Uganda. He ran on promises of creating a universal child care program, freezing rent for 2 million tenants, and making city buses fast and free.
Thousands of Nebraska workers are getting a pay bump today as the state's minimum wage rises to $15 per hour. After this year, future increases to the minimum wage are tied to changes in the cost of living. Nebraska's new minimum wage is now more than twice Iowa's, which is $7.25 per hour.